And here we go. Alexander the Great, Book 10, continuing. We're talking about a woman here. Ad ultimum, so to the last, or in the end, succubuit dolore. She succumbed to dolore, which is grief or pain. She succumbs to her grief. Ob volto qui capite. Okay, there's a little section here in the ablative. So, and with her head, her capite, obvoluted, which means covered over or veiled. Accidentes, this comes from falling. It's a present participle, and we can see it's plural, so we don't know who the subject is yet. Genibus suis neptem nepotemque. Okay, so suis means it's her granddaughter, her neptem, and her nepotem, which is her grandson. They were the ones who were falling at her genibus, to her knees, and averta. This is what she's doing. She's the nominative here in the supine form of past passive. She has averted it. She has turned away. So she succumbed to her grief in the end, with her head covered over. She averted. She turned away from her granddaughter and grandson who had fallen to her knees. And kibo, this is food. Parita means equally. Abstinuit. Okay, so it's a perfect verb. She's abstaining from food and luke. And this is an ablative form of which she's abstaining from. So from food and from the light she equally avoided. Quinto, and then a little clause, post quem mori statuerit. So this means after she had decided to die. So quinto die extincta est. So on the fifth day, the quinto die extincta. Extinct means she's dead after this clause where she had decided to die. Magnum means great in the accusative. Profecto. We're starting off here with an adverb that means assuredly. So assuredly, magnum. Alexandri indulgente. In em means towards her, it's in the accusative. Justitiae qui in omnes captoris documentum est. Okay, documentum here must be going with magnum. So assuredly, this is a magnum documentum, great evidence of the indulgency of Alexander. Double genitive in em towards her. We have the enclitic qui and the justice in omnes towards all captivos. This is the accusative plural. And so is a great evidence of the indulgence of Alexander towards her and his justice towards all the captives. Est mors huis, her death, quae which, when sustinuesset post darem vivere, when she had sustained to live after Darius, or when she was brave enough, or she had, as the Lode puts it, the fortitude. But with Alexander, or to Alexander, esse superstes, erubit. It means she blushed, she was embarrassed to superstes, to survive Alexander's death. Et, and Hercule, by Hercules, juste, it's an adverb meaning rightly, estimatibus. Okay, so this is to those who are estimating or judging the regem, and by Hercules, to those who judge the king justly or rightly, liquet, it is clear, bona natura eus fuisi, that he has had a good of that he was good of nature, that he was well mannered or had a good nature. Vitia, this is these faults or his blemishments were vel either to fortune or of age. Okay, so these vices or faults he had were due to his fortune or his age. And we might as well have the superstes as our daily dictionary word. I've lined it up here. It's our adjective, stupices, outliving, surviving, present witnessing, standing over on their top 2,000 words in Latin. Vis incredibilis. Incredibilis is the third adjective, so these are both nominative, adjective, and a noun. It was an incredible force, enemy of mind. Laboris patientia, so this is his endurance or suffering of labour. Propimodum, this is an adverb meaning almost. Sometimes you can see propi just by itself. Propimodum is just a long way of saying it. Nimia. So he's almost excessive in his endurance for labour, for hard work. Fortitudo, or his bravery, his fortitude, not inter reges modo, so non-modo means not only amongst the kings excelling, this is the present participle, so he In his bravery or fortitude he excelled not only the kings, said, but inter illos, amongst those quoque also, quorum of whom haec sola virtus fuit, of who this was their sole virtue or their good points. So he excelled not only the kings, but also people who were excelling in virtues. Liberalitas, this is liberalness or generosity. Sapi means often. Maiora tribuentis. So often he was more generous, maior is more, in his distributing or giving out of gifts, quam, than, adis, from gods, petuntur. That's the passive version, which than what is sought from gods. So he was often more generous in distributing gifts than even what people sought from gods. Tot regna, which tot just uses means so many, regnum is kingdoms, ort is either redita. So many kingdoms either redita, he either gave back, quibus, which were these, dempserated in bello, which he had taken away in war. So sometimes he gave the kingdoms back, which he'd taken away in war, or data were given dono as a gift, donums and neuter. Mortis, of death, cuis, of which, is the double genitives, death of which metus is what's going on here, it's the fear of which of death, keteros, the rest of people exanimat, this can mean can kill, it also means greatly fears or takes away the spirit basically of the rest. Perpetua contemptio, so he's in perpetual contemption of death, the fear of which really weakens and scares other people. Gloriae laudisque, these are genitives, of glory and of praise, ut, justo meo cupido. So cupido is what's going on. So there's a desire of glory and praise, which were major than justo, which are more than just or more than what you'd expect. So ita thus, art ut, so as or as, so that in a juvenile of a young man, et in tantus sane remitenda rebus. Okay, so tantus rebus, so what was due to a young man or someone who had done such great things, sane just means clearly, remitenda, this is omitted or overlooked. So he had a major desire for glories and praise, which is more than just what would be due to such a young man who had done such things and which could be overlooked. Yam pietas. So now the piety, erga, towards, preposition, parents. So now the piety compare, if I get that right. Now we turn to the piety towards his parents. Quorum of which, Olympidia, there's something to do with the Olympics or the Olympic mountain. In mortalitae consecre decreverit. So he had decreed to consecrate. Decreed is a head verb, taking an infinitive. The Olympiads, immortality. We've got the lobe actually saying among the immortals. Okay, and Philippum, which was his father. Again, we're talking about his parents. Ultus erat. This is way back in the past. So he had avenged Philip, his father, and he had decreed to consecrate the Olympic Games. Quorum here, of which were towards his parents. Yam, and now in omnes, in all, fere and firme, just adverbs, it means almost, emakoso, and now into all his friends, almost, into nearly all his friends, are benignitas, which is a kindness. So now we're dealing with the kindness to nearly all his friends, and erga towards the milites, his soldiers. Beni volentia, Beni is good, volentia is will, and so we had goodwill towards his soldiers. A concilium, this is his planning or his counsel, his thoughts. Par magnitudei enemi, which were equal to his magnitude of mind or his greatness of mind, and quantum, which is how much, vix poterat, scarcely was able, aetus is his age, capere to take solertia, which is cunningness. And so we have quantum solertia, how much of this cunningness he was scarcely able to take for one of his age, is pretty much what it says. Modus in modicarum cupidatatum. So he was restrained, or had limits, modus, to his desires. So he limited his desires in of modest ways. Put that in good English if you particularly want to. Venerus, this is of Venus, the god of love. Intra naturalum desiderum usus. So Uses here, you could say his use, but his habits of Venus basically, when it comes to love and pleasure, there was a desiderium. His longings were pretty natural. Nec ulla nisi. So neither did he do anything, ulla nisi, except a voluptas, which is pleasures which were ex permitio, which were permitted or lawful. Even though you might say he had a lot of gay sex and he was having sex with eunuchs and stuff, but it says here that's natural. So in genai perfecto again means assuredly, dotes erant. So these things he was given over to were in genai. Genai means he's like natural, inborn nature, basically. So he didn't give over to any pleasure except the ones that are permitted and assuredly of his nature. Illa fortunae, very short. This illa, if it's neuter, would mean these things were due to fortune, if that's in the dative. So, equare, say, to equal himself, dis to the gods, and celestes honores accursere. Usually this means to summon, but it can be to invoke or bring upon himself, especially since he's used say, and to bring upon himself celestial honours. Et talia sui dentibus oraculis credere. As you know, credere means to believe or to trust in, and to trust in such things, talia, is what the persuading oracles were saying. So he trusted in them. And the de dignantibus, this is very, how would you say that? Well, we'll just continue on. Venari ipsum vehementimus is comparative. Quam par esset erasci. Erasci is to be angry. And so he was more angry, quam par, than was normal, than was par, to those who are de dignibus. These are like unworthy people. And he was more vehement, ipsum, because to those people who didn't think he was worthy of being venerated, of being worshipped. So he would trust in the belief, such things which the persuading oracles said, but it was more than par, more than fair, and being angry to those people who didn't think he was worthy of being venerated, and he was rather vehemently about it. In externum habitum mutare corporis cultum. Okay, so in the external habitum, this is of external races other than Greek. Mutare means to change into the cultum corporis, the clothing. Habitum is the clothing, and cultum is their usual gear you'd wear. So basically, it's saying we usually change into the clothing of external races, the clothing that they wore on their body. Imitare divictarum gentium mores. Okay, we've got a double genitive, so he was into imitating the mores, the customs of the conquered races, which ante-victorium, before his victory, he had spreverated them, he had scorned them or disdained them, but then after he conquered them, he wanted to imitate them. Nam, for his iracudium, which is his ire or his irateness or his anger, and his cupidinum vini, and his love of wine. So this is his burning, hot-headed nature and his desire of wine. Sicuti, just as if in rita verited in juventa, just as has been irritated or provoked or encouraged in his youth, ita, thus, senectus, of old age or in old age, would have been potavised to mitigare. He would have been able to mitigate this or soften this. Old age would have softened his irate nature and his love of wine, maybe, which was really provoked in his youth. Fetendum est. This is our periphrastic gerundive, so it must be confessed, nevertheless, tamen. When plurimum virtuti debuerit, when what he owed was mainly to virtue or valor, as you want to call it. So plurimum, most of his valor was owed. More debuisi fortune, he owed more to fortune. Okay, so some of it was to his own valor, and what he owed it was to fortune. Quem solus, which solus he alone. That's taking on a nominative form. Omnium mortalium. Another genitive functions, of all the mortals, which he alone of all mortals had in his power. Okay, so when he had owed much to his own valours, he owed more plus to fortune. Quotiens illum a morte revocavit. So this is fortune is quotient means whenever usually, or how many times you want to say. How many times has she revocavit? She called him illum back from death. So this would be fortune personified. How many times, or look at it, how often she's saved him from death. Quotiens, or whenever, or when as much temere, that's rashness, it's an adverb. Vectum, so whenever rashness has vectum carried him in pericule, in the danger, his perpetual felicitate, or the perpetual enduring good luck or blessedness of Fortuna has protected him, has covered him or protected him. Vitae, quoque finem. So also the end of life, the finem vitae, eundum, the same, illo to him. Statuit. So she has decided also the end of his life, quem gloria, and basically also his glory. So it's the end of his life, end of his glory, which she's decided. Okay, so we've seen which glories fate had given him. Now, expectivere, this is shortened form of expectiverunt, eum, him, and the accusi, fata. Fate is the nominative. So fate had waited for eum for him. Dum, while. We're going into ablatives. Oriente per domito adito qui oceano. Okay? So while he had thoroughly tamed the Oriented, per just usually means thoroughly, so he's thoroughly tamed the east and the approach to the ocean, or where the ocean began. Quid, anything mortalis capiabat implerated. So anything which our mortals could take, he had implerated, he had filled this duty. That's basically what it's saying. Huic regi duci qui successor querebantur. So a successor queribant was sought to this regi, this king and general or leader. Sed maiore moleserat. But this was a bigger mass, this was a bigger task, you might want to say, quam than ut unus sabire iem posset, for which for one was able to undergo sabire, just means this, ems, the accusative of the female. So this was a bigger task than one unus, one man was able to shoulder. Itaque, and so nomen quoque is, also his name, eus nomen, et fama, and his fame, rerum, of his of matters. In totem, in the whole, propimotum, we've covered that earlier, it just means almost, totem orbem, the whole world, and almost the whole world, regs and regna, kings and kingdoms, diffuded. So his name and his fame diffuded. It flowed out into the kings and the kingdoms in almost the whole world. Clarissimi qui sunt habiti. So these were considered the most famous clarissimus, or the most renowned, qui who, even the minimi parte, or even such a small part, tanti fortuna, genitives, of such fortunes adheserent. So those who had stuck to even the least part, or those who actually inherited or took over, even the smallest part of such kingdoms and that, these succeeders, the successors, they were considered the most famous.